Welcome back. We are on day 8 of our rotational symmetry, that point symmetry, more specifically, painting project. So, day 8, make sure, of course, as always, that you are recording your time, both in and out of class. But let's talk about what we are up to. At this point, you should have your second card Sharpied in, ready to go. So the first thing I'm going to do is just verify that everything looks the way I want it to before I start painting anything. So I'm checking it out. Did I miss anything? Like, okay, that's there, that's there, that's there. Like, just kind of double check, like, did I get all the things? If not, come back in with the Sharpie and just kind of add in whatever needs to be added in, if that is your situation at the moment, okay? Another thing you'll want to do too is if you still see any unwanted pencil lines, you're going to want to come back in with your eraser and just erase those from view, erase them from our memory, just get them out of there. We're moving on. Here we go. So let's talk about what do we all need for class today. So we are going to be painting. You're going to need your card that we're painting. Maybe a permanent marker, if in fact you're going to be adding in any line or details, and maybe even one of those really thin markers you can see way over on the right hand side of the screen there. If you've got some really tiny details and you've got one of those really ultra thin markers, grab that out too. We're going to be painting, so of course, paint required for that. Paint brushes, super helpful when we're painting too. Something to put your paint on, so maybe you've got a paper plate, or I'm going to be using a painter's palette. I know it looks dirty, but this is actually dry here. Can be helpful to have like a paper towel or an old rag nearby. Obviously water for cleaning our paint brushes off with. Having a smock isn't a bad idea. We are using acrylic paints for this. As we know, acrylic paints do not come out of our clothes. They don't come out of fabric. So if you're sitting on like a chair that is made out of fabric, you know, we're going to want to protect those areas so we're not getting paint on them. Yeah, so that should. Oh, another thing I like to have too is something like to protect my work area too. So I always put down just a paper bag like this, but maybe you've got newspaper, maybe a tablecloth, whatever you use to protect that space, okay? So at this point, I have got my first card pretty much done, and I'm starting on my second one. With my first card, I used pretty much like very intense colors, meaning they were straight out of the tube, right? They were very intense. I didn't mix them. And I used primarily primary colors. So I thought it would be fun. Now, this is by no means a requirement, but I personally, I'm like, oh, it'd be kind of fun if my first card was like primary colors mostly, and then my second card was secondary colors. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Once again, this is not a requirement, just something fun I wanted to do. So anyway, I'm going to go through my paint brushes and start figuring out what one's going to be a good size. I think my fish is going to be green. Now, what color of green? So remember, our secondary colors are green, purple, and orange, right? Those look like they're the same, but my greens, oof, I got some picking to do. I'm going to do this kind of in between. I've got a more true green, kind of a chartreuse green, and then one that's sort of in between, maybe like almost like a lime. Anyway, and of course you can mix these too if you want to, if like this isn't quite the color you're going for. But for me, I do like how that's looking. It's kind of just right in between the other two. That Goldilocks kind of color, so we're gonna go with it. All right, so I'm gonna come on in. Remember, as we are painting, it's like, yeah, we want to do a good job painting, right? But if I happen to like overlap that line a little bit, let me just pull that closer so you can see what I'm saying. Do you see? I don't know if you can really even tell on the Zoom screen, but my green is overlapping my permanent marker a little bit. I am not going to worry about that too much because I know that next class, once my paint is dry, I'm going to be touching up any of those lines with my permanent marker, and I'll be bringing them, you know, making them sharp again. So I'm not overly concerned about that. Just remember, whatever you do on the one side, you'll want to make sure you do the same thing on the other. Now, for this, I know last time we kind of like, oh, if I do it up here, then I'm going to do it down there right away. I would say probably not with the painting, simply because with painting, it's wet. And so if I can kind of just work on like from top to bottom, I'm less likely to have, you know, my hand dragging through, or my shirt sleeve getting stamped into wet paint. So if we can avoid that, we're gonna try to do that. Anyway, so what I would do is kind of work from top to bottom. If you're right-handed, working from left to right works well. If you're right-handed, working from right to left. Once again, we're just trying to avoid having our hands dragging through the paint and messing anything up. We don't want that. Okay, I'm not gonna sit here and make you watch me do all these details forever and ever. But of course, like whenever you're ready, we're gonna clean off our brush, switch out our color, and move on to the next part. So I think I'm gonna do the crown. It's gonna be like an orange color. And actually for the orange, this is a little bit too intense for me, so I think I'm gonna mix it with a little bit of yellow just to make it more of that like golden color that a crown would be. So you can see I've got my colors here, and I'm gonna mix them on up. Just kind of brighten and lighten that orange a little bit. So it's still orange, just maybe not quite as dark, a little bit brighter. Ooh, I really love the secondary colors together. Like, primary colors are great and all, don't get me wrong, but I really love primary color or secondary colors together. Purple, orange, green. I think they're great. They're lovely. All right, so my goal then is going to be to kind of get this painted. You know, maybe I might need a smaller paintbrush for this part to get in there. Yeah, I'm gonna want this like teeny little guy here. But I'm gonna want to get my second card painted today. If I can get the background too, fantastic. If not, tomorrow. We've still got time, so it's all good. Don't worry about it. So yeah, I'm going to continue painting this today. And then remember, like, tomorrow's day 9, so I could be working on the background tomorrow. I can work on kind of tuning up with the Sharpie, any of those lines that need some tuning up and sharpening. Or, of course, another option, if you're kind of ahead of the game and you get all this stuff done today, or maybe you even already have a lot of it done, remember you can be then starting to extend your learning. And so I have a couple ideas for the extra credit. Idea number 1 would simply be to make a third card, something different than you've made so far, and you know, just continue to grow your skills. So that's one of the options that I thought of. Another option that I thought would be kind of fun, since we've been talking about intensity and color, what happens if you took one of your cards that you've already made, so just I'm going to pull out that primary color one. So this is obviously very intense colors. These are straight out of the tube, yellow, red, blue, obviously some dark green right there too. So what if I took the same card, but instead of having such intense colors, I pull back and I use like more tones of those colors. So for example, I'm not going to show you like a million things here, but I would want to take and first make gray, right? I'm going to want to make gray. For gray, we mix black and white. And when we mix black and white, the black is so much more powerful than the white. So I only ever do like the tiniest drip. That is like 20 times more than I actually need. So I always do it off to the side. Then I'm going to take my white, put that in the actual tray where I want to be working. And then, let's see, I'm going to grab a fresh paintbrush here. I'm going to grab like the teeniest amount of black paint. And because the black is so powerful, it's got so much pigment to it, even that teeny tiny drop added to all of that white is still going to make gray. Now my general rule of thumb is you can always add more, but once you mix it, you can't take it out. So start small and you can always add more in if you want. Anyway, so why am I making gray? Well, because in this one, we've got really intense colors. In this one, optional extra credit, right? Extending our learning. I want to do some muted colors. So for example, here's the blue that I had used on the headphones. So I'm going to take just a little bit of that blue. And I'm going to take a bunch of the gray. Oops, can you guys see that okay? And we're going to mix those together to make a muted gray. So this is not as intense as the other one. Of course, I could always add more blue if I wanted to, but I do like how that looks. So on this one, what did I all do blue? I did the ear or headphones, the little cuffs in there. So basically, I'm going to replicate what I did here, only using the muted version of the color. Oh, and I should mention this to you guys if you're like, man, but Mrs. Stinson, I don't have an extra copy of that original picture. Guess what? Let's pretend that this is a window here. If you tape this up to a window, grab a fresh piece of paper and tape that over the top, it's so easy to trace that original picture, and now you've got your second copy to do this extended learning, this extra credit with the muted colors versus the intense colors. Or maybe if you started with the muted colors, okay? Maybe then you're going to intense colors instead. So you choose. Either way, our goal is to have our second card for sure painted for tomorrow. Background, maybe you get it started, maybe you don't. And then if you want to extend your learning, that's some options for you too. All right, I can't wait to see how these are turning out. They're going to be so cool.